For a moment, it looked like Jelle Klaasen was finally turning things around. The form was coming back, the confidence was returning, and fans started to believe a real comeback was underway. But then 2024 and 2025 hit, and everything collapsed faster than anyone expected. From early glory to sudden downfall, Klaasen's journey has become one of the most puzzling stories in modern darts, and the question everyone keeps asking is simple: what the hell happened to Jelle Klaasen? Jelle Klaasen didn't ease his way into the spotlight, he blasted straight through it. At just 21, he walked into the 2006 World Championship as the underdog, the kid with raw speed and fearless confidence, and walked out as the youngest world champion the sport had ever seen. Overnight, he became the name everyone couldn't stop talking about. His throw was fast, sharp, almost reckless in the best way, and people were convinced they were watching the start of darts' next dynasty. And the expectations? They weren't small. As he moved into the PDC, fans and analysts kept saying the same thing. If this is what he can do at 21, imagine where he'll be in 5 years. Klaasen had the talent, the attitude, and the momentum to become a long-term powerhouse. But even during those early glory days, there were tiny cracks forming signs that the pressure, the spotlight, and the chaos of sudden fame might not be as easy to handle as everyone assumed. And those cracks were about to widen in ways nobody expected. But the real turning point came when the storm clouds started gathering, and that's where things get complicated. After that explosive start, everyone expected Klaasen to tear through the PDC. And for a while, it looked like he might. He had flashes of brilliance that reminded people why he was considered one of the most dangerous young players in the sport. But the consistency just wasn't there. One weekend, he'd look unbeatable, and the next he'd disappear in the early rounds without explanation. The pressure of being the next big thing started to show. While players like Van Gerwen, Wright, and Anderson were climbing fast, Klaasen's results drifted in the opposite direction. It wasn't that he lost his talent, it was that he couldn't turn it into the steady run of wins a top player needs to survive at the highest level. His ranking slipped, the tournaments got tougher, and suddenly he wasn't the young phenom anymore. He was the player people watched because they remembered what he used to be. But performance wasn't the only thing weighing him down, and what happened next would shift the entire tone of his career. Just as his results were slowing down, another problem hit, one that dragged his name into headlines for all the wrong reasons. In 2012, Klaasen admitted to sending inappropriate messages to someone underage, something that instantly became front-page news in the darts world and beyond. It created a fracture in his reputation that never fully healed, and for many fans, this was the moment his career took a turn he couldn't easily recover from. The incident followed him everywhere. Every big match, every televised appearance, every conversation about his potential, the shadow of that controversy was always attached. And whether people realized it or not, it changed the way audiences looked at him. On stage, he was battling opponents. Off stage, he was battling perception, criticism, and the weight of a mistake that stuck to him for years. And while he managed to keep his career alive, the combination of inconsistent performances and lingering scrutiny made the climb back to the top feel almost impossible. But Klaasen wasn't finished yet, and his next move surprised everyone. By the time the early 2020s arrived, the Jelle Klaasen that once electrified the stage looked like a completely different player. His scoring lacked its old bite, his confidence slipped in key legs, and the fire that once made him so unpredictable felt dimmer. In a sport where the top 32 players are constantly sharpening their game, Klaasen was drifting the wrong way, sliding down the rankings while others surged past him. Then came the moment no pro ever wants to face, losing his PDC tour card at the end of 2021. For a former world champion, it felt almost surreal. Years earlier, nobody would have imagined Klaasen outside the main tour. Yet here he was, standing at the edge of the professional scene, watching a new generation take the spotlight he once owned. The shift hit hard. It wasn't just a competitive setback, it was a public sign that his career had fully entered the downslope. But Klaasen didn't disappear. Instead, he did something many top-level players don't dare to do. He stepped into the WDF circuit to rebuild from scratch. No big TV lights, no massive venues, no roaring crowds, just gritty, grassroots darts. And surprisingly, something clicked. Away from the pressure of the PDC, he started finding his rhythm again. He moved quicker, threw freer, and played with a sense of urgency that fans had been missing for years. Then came the major spark, the 2022 Dutch Open, the biggest WDF ranking event on the calendar. Klaasen powered through the field and won it, reminding everyone that his talent didn't just vanish, it was still there, buried under years of setbacks. The win didn't fix everything, but it did something almost more important. It made people believe in him again. This run gave him momentum heading into 2023 and early 2024. And suddenly, there was a new question in the darts world. Was Jelle Klaasen actually on his way back? Turns out, he wasn't just coming back, he was aiming to reclaim what he'd lost. And that's when January 2024 changed everything. When Klaasen walked into European Q School in January 2024, the expectations were mixed. Some thought he'd flame out early, others believed he'd bulldoze through. What happened was something in the middle, but it was enough. Klaasen battled through the brutal, unforgiving format and secured his PDC Tour card again, ending a 2-year absence from the Pro Tour. It instantly became one of the biggest storylines of Q School that year. The former world champ was back, and for a moment, it felt like the story was turning. Klaasen talked about enjoying his time outside the PDC, but admitted that the big stage was where he belonged. Fans were excited, analysts were curious, and the PDC, well, they suddenly had another dangerous wildcard in the mix. Then, 2025 rolled in. Early in the season, Klaasen delivered one of his strongest performances in years by making it to the final of Players' Championship 3. He blasted through some tough opponents and looked sharper than he had in a long time. The speed was back, the swagger returned. Even the commentators were getting flashbacks of the old Cobra, the one who used to demolish legs in a blur of treble-hitting aggression. But the magic didn't last. After that impressive run, the results dipped again fast. His scoring became erratic. His doubles deserted him at crucial moments, and the early round exits piled up just as quickly as the hype had. Every time he seemed close to breaking into form, another disappointing performance dragged him back down the rankings. It was the same cycle fans had seen for years, but now it stung even more because the comeback looked so real. What made things worse was the competition around him. The new era of darts moved at lightning speed. Teenagers like Luke Littler were breaking records and lifting trophies. Players in their early 20s were hitting averages that would have won major finals a decade ago. The sport had evolved, and Klaasen was stuck chasing shadows of both his past and the future of the game. And as the 2025 season unfolded, the pressure built again. Ranking points slipped, Pro Tour opportunities dried up, and before long, he was fighting for his tour card all over again, a fight he'd ultimately lose. But even with all this, the story isn't finished, and the next twist might be the most surprising yet. Once Klaasen's comeback appeared to gain traction, the raw figures quickly revealed a different story. He ended the 2025 season ranked No. 89 on the PDC Order of Merit. That's far outside the top 64 threshold that tends to guarantee tour card security and major event seeds. He showed a flash of resurgence early in 2025, reaching the final of Players' Championship 3, where he lost 8-4 to Chris Dobie. Yet, this result proved to be an exception, not a turning point. After that final, his attempts to qualify for European Tour events stalled. He was listed among 17 players who had still not secured a European Tour spot by mid-2025. In terms of winnings, his 2025 year-to-date ranking money stood at about £23,000. This is woefully low by modern PDC standards for someone trying to re-establish themselves. The competition he faced intensified as well. A younger generation began averaging higher, finishing deeper, and turning what used to be solid average scores into just okay ones. Klaasen's match-winning percentage in 2025 was around 35.85%, 19 wins from 53 matches per one database. So you had a former world champion playing again, but the numbers said inconsistent performances, declining win rate, weak earnings, low ranking, and mounting pressure. That combination makes it almost inevitable that the comeback will stumble. And that brings us to the final blow, losing not just form, but standing. The situation became critical when Klaasen's slip in rankings and earnings meant he was once again fighting not just for wins, but simply to stay on the tour. With a ranking of No. 89 and earnings far below the standard for secure tour card status, the margin for error vanished. He also did not qualify for the 2026 PDC World Darts Championship, despite the field expanding to 128 players. The qualification criteria require a top 40 on the Order of Merit, top 40 on the Pro Tour Order of Merit, or regional qualification event entries. For Klaasen to miss that stage shows how close to the edge his position had become. Even after winning back his tour card at European Q School in January 2024 and showing glimpses of promise, the follow-through wasn't there. The seasonal earnings and ranking momentum simply weren't enough to rebuild his standing in a tour now stacked with rising stars. So what lies ahead for him? The path is clear but steep. He must string together more than isolated strong showings. He needs regular deep runs in Players' Championships and European tours. He must qualify for majors again. Rather than just compete without the world stage, his ranking can't stabilize. He must survive Q School again, or regain card security for multiple years, or risk being outside the top flight entirely. Because if Klaasen doesn't reverse the current trajectory, this chapter might mark the beginning of the final phase of his career, not a comeback, but a fade. Yet paradoxically, he still has the ability to shock on his day. The question now, does he have one last upward surge left, or is the window already closed? Looking back at Jelle Klaasen's career, it almost reads like two different stories stitched together. The first is sharp, explosive, and unforgettable. A 1-year-old kid shocking the darts world and setting expectations sky high. The second is far messier, filled with streaks of brilliance that never quite lasted long enough, off-board issues that hung over him for years, and a constant fight to hold on to a place he once dominated with ease. And now, after losing his tour card again, the contrast has never been clearer. The early success made people believe he was destined for greatness, but the years that followed showed just how brutal and unpredictable the sport can be. No matter how much talent a player has, the game doesn't slow down for anyone, not even a former world champion. But this is where Klaasen's story becomes genuinely interesting. Because even after everything, the highs, the collapses, the controversies, the rebuilds, he still hasn't given up. He still has the ability to catch fire on the right day. He still has the kind of throw that can overwhelm opponents when his confidence clicks. And he's still only one good run away from flipping the narrative all over again. So the final question isn't whether Jelle Klaasen has had a complicated career. He has. The real question is this: does he have one more rise left in him? Or have we already seen the last great chapter of the Cobra?